Friday nights during the fall. Six-man fans gather to watch a sermon of grit and determination be delivered by 6 men, 10 minutes at a time, 4 quarters a night. Here you'll find the quarterback, is also the linebacker, and the kicker, where iron sharpens iron, where hard work pays off, and where 6 are won. Now for your host of 6 is 1, Coach Goldman.
Welcome to 6 is 1. We're having a little bit of video difficulties today, so you're all going to get to be blessed by not having to see my ugly mug on the screen. We have Coach Mitchem with us, Coach Ronnie Mitchem from the Victory and Praise Sharks. Coach, how are you doing?
Doing great. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I was chatting with Coach Mitchem right before we got on this podcast or I guess now webcast that is more of a podcast, that I am 4 episodes ugly. I broke the camera. It just took me 4 episodes. And I am, we're going to have to get a better camera and some more stouts, I guess, because this kind of ugly needs better hardware. But anyway, and Coach, I was sharing with folks that it's interesting in this day and age. We're going to get into this with you, because Coach Mitchem and about how all this new format and our culture and how it's affected by a lot of the different things that we have, tools that you and I never even dreamt of, much less grew up with. But Coach Mitchem, today, he's with Victory and Praise, has been for a number of years, started the program out there. The Sharks have been a competitive program for a number of years. I first met Coach Mitchem in a playoff game out at our place, and we've got to be friends through football, through coaching. But during the season that I was my first year as a head coach, Coach Mitchem went through an event that just shook should shake every coach and most coaches to their core, and we're going to discuss that. He wrote a book. It's called "The Cost of Colors: A Coach's Story," and I'm going to let Coach Mitchem give us the high level of backstory on the event, and then Coach, we're going to drill down into sort of more aspects of it. So I'll walk you through, but the event that we're talking about that took place that brings about this book was you had 2 players on your team that during the time when all of us were, this kneeling thing was going on with Kaepernick, and I remember addressing it with my players saying, look, we're not going to be disrespectful. This is not something we do, and this is not the platform you do. You had 2 players take a knee during the national anthem, and my understanding, Coach, is you had told everybody on the team, like I told everybody on my team, that this is just not the proper format. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. We since we started our program, we've made that clear. That's one of the important parts of our program, of course, is respect. And we wanted, during the national anthem, respect to be shown. And we even practiced many times how to do the national anthem, and showed them the proper way and made sure all of them was on board. And of course, the program started way before the kneeling started. So once the media started showing the kneeling, I made it clear again, hey, we will not be doing this. And so we had no problem. 2016, same players. 2017 come around, no problem. I made it very clear. If you do it, you're going to be off the team, because, that's not going to be accepted in our program. You're not going to disrespect the country and our military men. And so never had a problem until one Friday morning I got a text, right, the day of the game, and found out and tried to make some adjustments and offered a few things to them, tried to meet with them, and finally got them on the phone. And I thought we had an agreement on some other ways they could protest, because, I don't protest, period. We're there to play football, and people need a break from everything around them, and football is one of those breaks that people enjoy. But they went ahead, and one knelt, one put his fist up in there. And so immediately I walked over, just like I told them. I said, shook their hand. Well, the one boy, and I said, I appreciate your time as a shark, but your time as a shark is done. And then the other one also come over, and I asked him, was he done? Before I could ever remove him, and he said yes. So that's when all the firestorm started.
Yeah. Well, and before we get into the details, because we will drill down. That is the basis of the book. I think it's important for people to understand a little bit of your backstory. So if you don't mind, give me a little bit about, first let's just talk about, you grew up in Florida, correct, Coach? I mean, that's...
Well, yeah, I was born in Northwest Florida, Fort Walton Beach, Florida, but we eventually moved to Montgomery, Alabama.
Okay, so Montgomery. And then as a young man, you played football, but in the book, and I do encourage, it's called The Cost of Colors. Folks can look it up on Amazon and find it. You mentioned what I thought was real interesting was a particular coach that had a large impact on your life. So why don't you go through and tell us a little bit about Coach Ward?
Yeah, when you dedicate a chapter of your book to a man, he's obviously made an impact.
Yeah.
And besides my parents and family, I don't know of anybody who made a greater impact in my life than Coach Glenn Ward. He was a man that played at Auburn, which I didn't hold that against him, being a Bama fan, but, we developed a great friendship, and he became my spiritual dad and my football coach. He was our youth pastor and our football coach at our Christian school, and he was such a fine example of what a man should be. He loved his family. He loved the Lord more. First of all, he loved the Lord. He loved his family, and he loved all of us kids. And we always felt that love, and he tried to teach us to be men, and, it was such an impact to never quit, never give up. And, of anybody in the world that can impact young people, coaches can make such an impression on a young person.
Yeah, no, Coach, that is without a doubt, and I think that's one of the reasons why, I strive to get better at doing it, and part of the reason behind even having these conversations is I can learn so much from other coaches. But it is true. I always tell folks, when I want my sons to learn something, I go to another coach that's coaching them and say, do you mind passing this along? Because it's the only way it's going to get through.
Yeah, from dad, coach, it's dad.
Yeah, that's just dad talking. Unfortunately, dad overrules coach, and therefore I lose all pathways into their heart. But it's interesting. You sew in as a parent, and it is very different because that, and I think the element too, obviously, and being a football coach specifically. I mean, Coach Ward was your football coach. It's a sport that's a very intense sport. It has a lot of elements in it that mimic life, and and that's what I think makes it so unique. The adversity that you put yourself under. There's a lot of physical adversity, and when you were after you were with Coach Ward, you went into to the Marine Corps, and I think that certainly it appeared to shape a lot of the way. I mean, not to say that you probably weren't patriotic before you went into the Corps, but give us a little bit of understanding of your time in the Marine Corps and your service, and thank you for your service. And
I appreciate it.
And just kind of how that helped shape your thought process.
Well, I had a chance to play college football, but I just decided I wanted to play football, but didn't want to go to college. And I think a lot of young men find themselves in that situation. But I made the choice to join the Marine Corps and went over to Parris Island, South Carolina. And what a lot of people don't realize about boot camp, of course, it's tough and it's strict and it's physical, but they also teach you a lot about Marine Corps history. And so even though I was patriotic, loved my country, watching John Wayne movies is one thing, but actually seeing live footage of Marines going into combat and sometimes seeing the aftermath that they would actually show you, you got a great picture of what these men endured and what they went through. And so, that shaped me as a American for years to come, and will always be things that are in my mind. And of course, I had the privilege to meet with a lot of men who had been in Vietnam and some in other militaries exercises, and I was always drawn to the fact of how much respect they deserved, and sometimes they don't get, because people appreciate it, but they don't understand really what these men have endured for us to have the privilege to play football on a Friday night. And so it would ever, be a lasting effect on my life, and I was always be proud to be a Marine. And people always say, "You're not an ex-Marine." I tell them, well, I'm a former Marine, because I don't think they'd have me back in the shape I'm in now.
I'm pretty certain of that, Coach.
Yeah. When I got out, I promised. I ran all those years in football and sports. I ran in the Marine Corps. I said, I'm not going to run anymore. And I pretty well kept that promise.
Yeah. I have been able in the last 2 years to sit in 3 different occasions, either in a room or at a table with 3 Navy SEALs, and most amazing people I have ever listened to. And I've been blessed to travel, and business has put me in opportunities to get to hear what they call motivational speakers. And none of these guys are motivational speakers, because what they are, they just literally tell you what their life was like, and it's just amazing. And they do it with the utmost sincerity. They're as humble. I have never met more humble. You can tell when somebody's telling you a story and it's about them, and it's not as much about the events or what else is going on, or even about you. And none of those guys. And I've seen that time and time again. I think there's a humbling aspect of going and visiting other countries and seeing how they live and seeing what they have to endure. And then, in that instance, oftentimes, having to go and not even see the best elements, because you're there in a war situation, or at least one that might, turn into a war situation. And then you come home, and I think it just makes you very reminded every day of how blessed we are in this country. And unfortunately, we just don't. Too many of us are sheltered from that because we don't have the opportunity to see the other side.
Right.
I think that's one of those things that that service does that for an individual, and it shows up in the book in the sense that what I think is you drive home very well is that that you have a love of country and a respect, like you mentioned, for the people that do that, and it comes, and I think that's one of those things that some people don't understand or seem to gloss over simply because they just don't have a framework from which to understand it. Would that be a fair assessment, Coach?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think anybody who had that full understanding would do the things that we're seeing done to disrespect the country and the military. Memorial Day was just this last week, and I've talked with a lot of my military men in my church, and the one thing that I find that each one of them, it wasn't so much the combat, because they were there to fight for their country and they're proud of that, but it was losing their friends. That's the thing that seems to be the hardest part for them. I lived, they died, and I can't imagine, because when I was in the Marine Corps, you become like family with your buddies in there, and there's a closeness that's hard to describe other than football, being on a football team. But it's even more intense because you are, many of you young men who've never been away from home, you're there and you become very close. And, I mean, to imagine losing one of those guys fighting, it would cause issues, you know, for years to come. And I just, when I see somebody kneel or burn the American flag or talk trash about America, it just makes me realize how unappreciative they are of the sacrifices that have been made for this great country and the rights we have. And, of course, so many of them say, well, that's what you fought for their right to do that. Well, you may have the right to do something, but it doesn't make it the right thing to do.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the issue we have in our country today. Everybody justifies everybody's actions instead of saying, you know what, there's no sense in that. And there's so many ways to protest without disrespecting and spitting on the graves of the men and women who have died to give you the freedoms that you enjoy every day. And so I knew, you know, in my heart, I wasn't going to be a part of that, nor was my football team going to be a part of it. Unfortunately, I got drawn into it, and people say, well, it was because they were black or whatever. You know, it's a racial issue, and, of course, I was attacked on that area because that's what the left does, and those who are globalists, that's their biggest issue and way to get people riled up. But it was all about patriotism to me. And I've told people, and I said in the book, it didn't matter if it was pro-lifers who were kneeling. And I'm as pro-life as they get because I'm totally against abortion.
Yeah.
But I'd still have an issue with the pro-lifers doing that. And I would react in the same way had my players on my team said, we're kneeling. The flag of the United States represents freedom to the entire world. Off the sacrifices of men. I mean, we got 1.1 million men who have given their life, the ultimate sacrifice in combat for our freedom. And not only ours, but for countries around the world, because most of our battles have been fought on other soil. And to see that, you know, is something that I'm not going to be a part of. And I know so many coaches, and I talk to them. And I just want to say this, that, you know, I'm a pastor, but I heard from more coaches with texts and calls and support when this happened to me. And it made me feel like I was a part of a great family. And I think everybody who coaches, you start feeling that way. Even though you're not around each other a lot, we talk, and, I mean, we get out there and play against each other. And I sat in there, my buddy down here, Pavlik, down here at the Fort Bend Chargers, you know, me and him get along every day of the year except for 4 hours on the Friday night we play.
Yeah.
But there's a closeness because we're all trying to work with these young men, develop them. And, you know, I don't know any coach that would want to see another coach be under attack for doing what he believes right in his heart. But I appreciate it. I just want to take the opportunity while I got this. And I know you're reaching out to coaches with these, that I appreciate it. If I didn't return your call or text, it's because I was being bombarded at the time by CNN, Don Lemon, New York Times, you name it. I mean, my phone was just a buzz. I don't even know. I still find emails from programs that I didn't even know had contacted me.
Yeah.
You know, and it's been a year and a half since this happened, so.
Well, let's drill down into the event itself. Like you mentioned earlier in the podcast when we opened up, that you know, you had you know, told the team and didn't expect anything different from the team than you had the year before and the years before. And I might add to you mentioned earlier that you practice the national anthem. We do the same thing. I want to make sure that we're all lined up, we're all doing that, and that as young men they understand. And they don't understand, and I understand because of some of the things we talked about, the perspective. They're young, they don't, you know, they're still learning about what it is to be a young man, what it is to be American. Many of them haven't ventured outside of their own city, much less their own state, much less their own country, and don't have quite the perspective, but that's what we're there to do, is to help them understand it, better understand it. That's part of coaching. And so, yeah, we practice that as well. And the one thing that, that when the event happened, that came up time and time again, and I'll tell you, Coach, when this was said in the media, and I knew immediately that this was a spin story, immediately. And the only they might have had me for a second, and knowing you just, like I did, was they said you made a young man strip down and take off his clothes, and that was what they ran with everywhere. Here's a white coach and black players, and he kicking them off the team, and he's humiliating them at the same time. And that was what and so why don't you address that, because you address it in the book. But the moment I heard that, Coach, I was like, that is so far, that there is no. I'll never forget, because I was with my wife when, and I remember going in and saying, this is a load of dung, because I said, there's no way on God's green earth the coach would do that. And so why don't you talk about that?
Well, I had talked with my coaches ahead of time when they got here that day, because I thought we had an agreement. Remember, all this is happening from that morning till that night. And so I told them, I said, look, if they kneel and all, we're going to remove them from the team. Just make sure we get all our equipment back. Y'all make sure of that. Because we just bought new uniforms. Mm-hmm. And matter of fact, those two boys, everything they had on, our program owned. Helmet, shoulder pads. The only thing that was theirs was their cleats. And so there was never in my mind, never intention by my coaches for them boys to strip on the sideline, which they call it stripping, but that didn't happen. First of all, once I shook his hand and told him, hey, you no longer sharp, I walked over and I told them both, I said, I want my equipment left, right, but I pointed up to the rest area. And I said, I want you to take your equipment off. And people around me said I did say rest area. But I pointed to the ground where our equipment was, and I said, I want my equipment left right here. And a couple questions you had to answer, which the media, if they were worth anything, would have asked. They're incompetent, lazy. I have no respect for the media. I believe nothing I read anymore. The referee's calling us to kick the ball off, so I've got to get back to my players. Once I told them that, I went back to players. But if I couldn't make them stand, how do I make them strip?
Yeah.
I mean, I go from, you're not going to listen to me about the kneeling, respect the national anthem, but all of a sudden you're going to listen to me and strip down because I told you to. And it didn't happen. I didn't tell them to strip down. Second thing was, how come the same parents, particular one, which I won't mention, who had went across the field the week before and verbally attacked the coach and the fans, why would they not have come after me for doing that if that was true? And they all had cameras and they knew they were going to do it. And they videoed it, but they've never showed the video because they know what I'm saying would show on the video.
Yeah, I mean, this was premeditated. That they were encouraged. This was certainly encouraged by. There were adults involved in this process, and the fact that they brought it to you and your attention right in advance. So there's tape
that
of the whole
morning,
thing. Right, there's tape.
We've got whole weeks. I've coached these boys for 2 years, and let me just say, one of them spent the night at my house. Was good friends with my son. I take him to football camps. Enjoyable young man. We had a great relationship. He texted me just like we were buddies. On my birthday of that year before this happened, he put on Twitter, happy birthday to the greatest coach you could ever ask for. Okay, but all of a sudden, I'm this vicious madman, but that's not the case. The third thing that people need to realize, if this happened on the sideline, all these people who were standing there and witnessed this, did the media ever try to speak to any of them. Not one person was ever interviewed by one news source. And so the fact is, because it's a complete lie. And I hate to use that word because I love those two boys, still do. We had a great relationship. Last text I had with him was he needed to transfer to play for another school. And I gave him a clearance. And the last I said, even through all this, what's happened, I love you. And he texted back to me and he said, I love you, thank you, and I love you too, Coach. So there was none of this, this build up hatred or bitterness between us. Them boys could never stand and say a word against me as far as them being mistreated or done wrong on my football team. I treated them with respect and loved them just like every other player. But people have to realize I had 13 players, 11 wanted to stand, and 2 decided to disrespect the flag.
Yeah, and the story's and there's not even a mention anywhere that I could find of, the 11 that wanted to stand and why they were choosing to stand.
And how upset they were, about it.
Well,
that was what was crazy, though, how the story was supposedly about social injustice and all, but they tried to point the story at me when the mother said that I had a slave master mentality that beat, whipped them, and killed them and such. Now, you talking about blown away. When I heard that, I was completely level, man. You talking about somebody punching you in the gut? I'll never be able to tell and express how much I was like a dagger into my heart. I've treated these young men with respect. I've shown love. I've spent 15, 20 hours a week producing a program where they could play football, where they would never have the opportunity as homeschoolers. And to all of a sudden, the same people who you love and appreciate turn on you and start telling this to the media. And that's where the firestorm really, even the kneeling, some of them were upset, but once they added on that I'd made them strip, which, like I say, was a complete lie. The media loved it. They were feeding it out there. It was like, pouring gasoline on a fire. It was spreading and getting crazy. And that's why I got hate mail. I got death threats, over something that didn't even happen.
Yeah.
Because people immediately believe it because the media tells them. I didn't even realize after doing interviews with all the news crews that Saturday here at my church and football field that was even being told. But you see, all I had, Houston Chronicle contacted me the night when I got home of the incident. But I didn't even realize that was what was being said and being done until I watched the interviews Saturday night after I'd already done all the interviews. They didn't give me that information. The last lady that interviewed me after the interview mentioned it. And so I was, I wasn't prepared or ready because I had no idea that's what was being spread and said about me. And, of course, I had a Marine contact me, and he said, I just got to know, did you make them boys strip? Because you know good and well, I told my friends, no, he's a Marine. He would let them square themselves away. The Marine Corps language. And that's exactly correct. No, I would never embarrass or humiliate them boys, and they know it. And I'm just sad that all had to be said and done, but I don't hold any hard feelings with the boys. I still love them, care about them, pray for them.
That's good, Coach. Yeah, I mean that is the part I think of the story that as coaches we have to realize that the truth is not what's going to be put out there, because the truth is too boring. It's not sensational enough. It's not. I mean what the media had was what they fit. They had a different ethnicities, on either side of the conflict, and in this day and age, that seems, everybody's tribe has to be what we're known by, unless of course your tribe's Christian, then you're not known by that at all. I mean, I haven't quite figured out why, in all this tribalism, the Christianity tribe doesn't get that one didn't count, right?
Yeah, right.
But your gender or your race or your socioeconomic, all those make all the difference in the world. But certainly not your faith. But that in this day and age, that seems to be what drives, and that as coaches, we can be doing everything right. We can be treating running our programs the way we're to be running our programs. And that's not going to prevent you from finding yourself, and whether it's, in your case, it was national and international, but it could still be a local situation that blows up just as fast, because that with all the Twitter and YouTube and all the other social media, those things can all blow up real fast, and things can be taken easily out of context. And it's something that we as coaches need to be prepared to just simply you're something like you're just going to have to buckle down, persevere, and speak the truth. And to the extent that people will take the time to listen to the truth, then that's what you have to do. But give me a little bit about the aftermath. Let's talk about the aftermath, because you said there's security issues, you had death threats.
Yeah.
I mean, that has to play a role in your family, your wife. I mean, give me a little bit of kind of what transpired after that.
Well, in our politically correct society we have, which I think is spawned from the very pits of hell myself, a way of telling us what we can and can't say by those on the left and those who are anti-Christian. I was the perfect target. I'm a Christian, I'm a pastor, I'm a football coach, and I'm a former Marine that loved my country. So, it was like charming the waters, and there was no effort to try to tell the truth. It was just everything they could was to point against me and try to turn people against me. But I was so glad to see so many of the comments on this, and I would look at many of them. 95% would be, "Good job, Coach, way to go, thank you for standing up." But then all of a sudden you're getting death threats. You're getting your phone's bombarded with messenger and text, and I don't even know how these people got my number. But it goes up to 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, ding, 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 and just telling me how they know where I live, and they're going to teach me and have fun with me. And, my first thought as a Marine, you come and you're going to find you ain't going to have as much fun as you think. So there's no lay down in me. But yeah, it affects your family. I mean, my wife passed out. I've never seen her pass out from the stress. My family was weary. I was weary. It was tough for me to get up and preach every service and to do my daily function as a pastor, and then be on the football field. And I mean, we're on the football field, and every time a strange car drove up in the parking lot, everybody on the field stopped and looked. And I would just tell the boys, "Come on, let's get back at it." But yeah, there's a fear, because you don't know with the crazies in the world we have today what they would do, and we had to take precaution at our church and still do. But our football games, we had to have security and try to be very observant, what was going on around us. But until somebody's ever in that situation, they'll never understand the stress and the toll that it will take on you. And just to be honest, I realize now, because I've come out of it, but there was a time of where I don't know so much as depression, but because I don't, as a Christian, don't want to let depression get a hold of me, but it was just like a fog on me, and I just seemed to couldn't get it off and shake it off, because everywhere you go, you don't know if somebody's looking at you. They look at you, don't know if they know you, if they're for you or against you, so you don't know whether to smile or duck.
Yeah.
It's a constant worry, and even today, it's still the same way, because I hadn't got any ugly stuff for a while, but they just all of a sudden out of the blue, somebody will see those stories or watch a video of it and a news clip, and all of a sudden I'll start getting junk in the mail, But we also had so many patriots, people that love their country, love God, write me, text me, and support me. So I would say 75% was positive, But that 25% with their foul, filthy language that I couldn't even. I tried to put a few of them in my book so people could get a taste, but those were the nice ones.
Yeah.
They were so foul and nasty, and every word out of their mouth a curse word. And one of the big things was the so-called pastors who are so racist that they were, even their letter was full of racism, and accusing me of being a racist when I got a multicultural church. My piano player's from Uganda. His son plays my drums. They said we had white supremacy material in our church that we sold. We've never had such a thing. Had they ever walked in my church to look, they would have saw one of my dear friends, Carl Brown, who's a black minister, his books and stuff in our church. But we've never sold anything like that. They even made fun of we were raising our hands to worship in the picture of our church on our website and Facebook page, and said we were doing a High Hitler. Yeah. This is the kind of sick people that are out there, you know. One guy video was actually saying that when I said our flag, but I was saying it was only white people's flag. And I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Our flag includes everybody. Yeah. You know? And I didn't have just white players left on my team. I had a black player and Hispanic players who all felt just like we did. 11 of us stood strong and believed and showed respect to our flag for the rest of the football season.
Yeah, I think it's just truly amazing that the security measures you did have to go through, the turmoil. Now, one thing you write in your book, and I'm going to read from your book because I thought this kind of spoke, and this is more where I want to talk a little bit about kind of culturally where we find ourselves and where football plays that role culturally. You write in the book that clearly there's a need in this country to bring boys back to the basics, back to old-fashioned face-to-face competition, and for decades football has done that. It's good for a boy to grind a cleated toe in the ground, look an opponent square in the eye, and pray that he's prepared enough to endure a game, that there will be winners and there will be losers. And you know, you can read through lots of books, and I'm a reader, but that passage as a coach stuck with me because it's talked to a couple of things. One is, you know, that we do find ourselves culturally at a different place, and that we have an opportunity at coaches to use a wonderful sport that can help young men become men. We're not out there trying to make ladies. We're not out there trying to make, you know, my sons get upset. Well, not upset, but they're like, you just keep saying the same thing over and over. I just say it different ways, but I'm like, our role, in my belief, is to make you, you know, good Christians, good husbands, you know, and good fathers. That's, you know, those are the titles you're going to wear in your life that are really going to, when you get to be our age, you're going to look back on, and those are the ones that you're going to treasure the most. And and you know, what do we instill, and that life itself is turmoil. I mean, you're around it all the time, and as you get older, it just becomes, your work's going to have turmoil, you know, everything, and you got to be able to fight through it. And I think it's a great sport to do that. So speak to, you know, how you look at football, and because in the book it does come out as being a way to help young men become men.
Right. That's, you know, that's the greatest part of getting to be a football coach, is to help young men to develop and become men, fathers, husbands. Hopefully husbands and fathers.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the things we preach, right?
I said it backwards,
yeah,
right?
I know.
And, you know, we teach them to shake hands. I had one daddy come to me, and he said, I took my son to a job interview, and I said, this is what you need to do, son. And he said, Dad, I already know all this. He said, well, how do you know it? He said, because I've been a shark for 4 years. Coach Mitchem's already covered all this. So, you know, I take it as a part of my duty to teach them how to go about getting a job, how to be a man, how to shake a hand, look a man in the eye, speak to him. And today all these things are trying to be washed away. I mean, they don't even want boys and girls to know what they are. they can just self-identify, which is garbage. And I try to have young men, I tell them this is a physical sport. There's days you're not going to feel like being on this football field, and you're going to say, man, I should have stayed home, but you push through it. And it should build you to understand you can push yourself further than you think if you just do it. And we're going to push you on this field. And when you think you can't run another sprint, we're going to run another sprint. And you're going to grow, and you're going to start realizing, man, I could barely run those. Now I'm running those with ease, and we're going to add some more to it. I said, because one day you're going to not feel like going to work, but you're going to have babies that need milk and diapers, and you're going to have to get them and go to work. And that's what we want to make you, a man that's willing to take on the task and accomplish it, and don't let anything stop you from doing what needs to be done. And so, that's the greatest part of coaching, getting to see these young men and just have people, young men to grow. I've got some now that have babies. We call them little shark babies. And it's exciting to see these young men, grow up. And what's the need is I still have a relationship with them. They'll still text me and call me and send me pictures, and occasionally I'll get to see them. But there's nothing like coaching. There's kids I would have never met from my pulpit that now are part of my life. And I got a text from one last night. It's up at college in Dallas. And he told me, he said, Coach, thank you so much for coaching me, and I enjoyed being one of your players. And he said, you made available an opportunity I would have never had to play football. And, to see these young men go forward, that's a great thing. I mean, just teach them catch a football or how to block or tackle is exciting, and to see that click. But to see them grow in and mature into good husbands and fathers, and that's something that every coach should take greatest pride in.
I'm with you there, Coach. I just really, think that, and I mean, I know it's the same in a lot of, we've all coached other sports, and for me, the element of football for men is just a unique blend of being able to reach a young man. You can reach him in a way you cannot do it in a classroom. You cannot do it in as a father. I shared that with you earlier, right? I got to go to other coaches. Right. But it's just, and I really, another topic another day is some of the things that I think are being thrown at our sport in general by the media. It's all a bunch of garbage. Because I do believe that this is the last sport that people in the media just really, maybe throw boxing in there as well, that people turn their nose up at, but because they have no understanding of how powerful it can be in doing good, as a force for good in the lives of so many young men. Coach, if you had to do it all over and you started back and you started your program and you brought your program up and you were told in advance, this is where it's going to land you. This is the cost of sowing into these young men's life. Would you do it again? And would you change?
Absolutely.
And what would you change if you did? Would you change anything about the way you did anything that, in a large scale, we'd all change, we'd all change the game plan every week.
Yeah, I would suggest a few of my calls I made, yes. For sure.
I'm just going to tell you, by the way, Coach played us that year, and one of the things that was during that turmoil year, we you met us in the playoffs, and we played in the playoffs, and after reading your book, Coach, it never dawned on me. It just goes to show you how self-interested we can be. I never really understood all that your players, all that your team, all that you were going through even though this was probably 6-7 weeks after the event, but now you're just really in the crux of the firestorm, where the rest of us, it was gone, right? It's a 48-hour window, but you're right in the crux of it at that point. And I shared with my sons, I said, we just played it. When we played that team, they it was not going to be possible for us to get the best, simply because there's just too many things pulling at you. It's hard enough just to keep people focused when all you're thinking about is football and school. Not, well, am I going to get shot at practice? Is some lunatic going to come over here and try to, disrupt our lives and in the congregation and so on and so forth. So it was a testament that you continued through that schedule. One of the things I want to make sure people understand too about it's not like you kicked, player number 12 and player number 13 off the team as well. By the way, those were two stellar, seasoned football players that, as six-man coaches, you sewed into and you need. I mean, if you're going to kind of have the run that you're going to have. And so that didn't play a factor at all, and I think that's a testament to your character, that it didn't make their color didn't make a difference, their ability to play didn't make a difference, their the only thing that made a difference was their actions, and we should be judged. And you taught the lesson that, look, actions have consequences. We speak to young men all the time. I had a coach tell me that, well, we need to kick somebody off the team. I said, we never, ever kick a player off the team. Players either elect to play on the team or not to play on the team. I've never in my life as a coach, and I this is a young coach. I said, you will, if you're doing it right, you will never kick somebody off a team, because you don't need to. They do it themselves. That's you give people choices in life. They can make good choices or bad choices, but it's they're making. And when we all know this as parents, or hopefully we know it. But if you haven't instilled this, that the more you give rope, the more the child's going to take. You have to have consequences, and that's throughout life. Life has consequences.
And that's one of the things that people mess up. Say, well, you throwed them off the team. They removed themselves from the team. They admitted in the interviews, we knew if we did it, he was going to do what he said, because that's the way I ran my program. If I tell you something, I mean it. And they knew it, and it was. Well, it was a sad event and affected. Huh?
I was going to say, who would respect you on your other players if you didn't?
That's right. And, my other parents said what they don't realize is we would have pulled our sons. So what am I supposed to do, play football with two players who won't show disrespect, or have 11 that want to show respect? But, that's the side the media does. They never cover the angles. Back when we were young, you would watch the news and you would get both sides of the story. And then you would get to decide, what you feel. Not anymore. If you're Christian, if you're an American and you love this country, you're the one they're going to attack. And whoever does disrespect to the country, whoever, for whatever purpose or reason, has something to say against Christians or America, the media immediately goes to their side and tries to make the picture there. But I do want to say that my young men struggled through that season with injuries, beat up, and let me tell you, it affected them when their two friends walked off the field. And like you said, I mean, when parents call you and say, is it safe for my kid to come to practice? That's a pretty sad day. And I'll be honest with you, I cried. Yeah. I wept because I was, dear God, what's happened? I mean, you stand up for your country. Two boys broke our team rules. And also the news media wants to come after us, and they're setting off all these crazies that are, potentially to do anything. And so I was just glad for that season to be over, to be honest with you. Even though you give us a good thumping that last game. I was glad for the thumping to get out of there. I had no idea that was going to be the end of my coaching career. Yeah. And it was going to end with a goose egg, but it was hard to get the boys full attention. We were competitive in several games, and we won a few after that. But, in fact, the night that happened, we won 31-30, but of the kneeling incident. But we won a few, we lost some, but it was hard to stay focused, and my boys had a tough time, and I admire them. And I told them, I admire you for sticking through the season And at least one thing you can say, you didn't win a state title. Seniors, you can always take this, that you may not have won a state title, but you team in your senior year was in Sports Illustrated. So we tried to stand around and say, ask guys, they show you a state championship ring, were you in Sports Illustrated? So try to turn everything to a positive.
There you go. Well, Coach, I truly appreciate the stance you took, the time you've taken with us today to help people better understand. The book is going to be referenced below. Matter of fact, since neither one of our ugly mugs are on this thing, I'm going to figure out a way to put a copy of the book up so people can see the cover. It's called The Cost of Colors: A Coach's Story. Coach Mitchem, we truly appreciate you for taking the time to walk us through that season. And it's a memorable season, and that, because it definitely was. I mean, that's the way it was. Coach, from here, tell me what the what your plans are, what you're looking at. Your son's a senior this year, correct, sir?
Yeah, he's going to be playing for Tomball Christian.
Okay.
We've tried for the last 2 years since this to put our team together. We graduated a lot of kids the years before and during that time. So, that year I had, I think, would have had 7 seniors on my team.
Yeah.
So, back to the part of football making men, we got so many parents who won't let their sons play because they're scared they're going to get hurt. And then there's a lot of them don't want to play. And so we've been having a hard time finding players. And people ask me, they say, did that have something from the kneeling? Is that why you're having a hard time? I don't know. But I do know this. I've done all I can to try to find enough players. And we finally decided, after trying for 2 years now, that we're going to end Sharp football. But a great coach said, Dean Stallings, when he left Alabama, he said, I'm not closing the book, I'm just turning the chapter.
Yeah.
And that's the way I feel, that God's blessed me with the opportunity to get to coach, and I impacted a lot of young men's lives. I pray positively. And never would have dreamed from the football. I thought maybe being a preacher, I might get known around the world for preaching, right? Never knew it was going to be from coaching.
God
and
works
not really coaching, just taking a stand for what I believe in.
Yeah, but that's all part of it. And I'll tell you this, Coach, there's a lot of places that are, and that's like I mentioned a little earlier in the podcast, that's for another podcast to have a discussion about those elements that are out there that do not see football as a sport that they think really should be the positive element it is in our society, and are attacking it, and what we're seeing ramifications of that in lots of programs across the state. It's just
one thing, I've got a lot of kids that come from another sport. I'm not going to mention it would play for me, and the families would say, they always say there's something different about the Sharks. And there's such a family unity, but I believe also, they say that my boy seems to get more out of football. And all these kids loved it. Some of them took a chance on it and we fall in love with football. I mean, your natural instinct's not to run your body into another human being's body. But once you ever can accomplish that, and don't have fear, and go out there and play, these things are positive impacts in their lives.
Yeah, I agree.
I think without football, America's going to have a real slippery slope into this feminine attack against men. And we need men. I'm telling you, we need men, and we need to raise our young men to be men. That's the way God made us, to be men. And football is one of those great sports to help develop that in them.
I amen to that, Coach. So, Coach, again, I truly appreciate you taking the time. Looking forward to catching up with you this season. At some way, shape, or form, we're going to get you out to the pasture and get to speak with our young men.
Love to,
because they really would benefit from from what you have to say. You'll always be coaching in some shape or form. Looking forward to hoping that your son has a blessed season. You get to be a fan, which is a different. I don't know if I'm not going to have that. You never know. But right now, I'm a fan when it comes to basketball. I love being a fan, Coach. I will say that because I get to act the fool. But I'll stop just short of saying something to the coach. But I do like. But I get free reign on the officials, right?
Right. That's what I tell my family. I'm friends and the Shark family. Hey, let me have the officials. That's one of the fun things I get to do, is get after them. So one time I get to fuss at somebody.
So we appreciate your time, Coach. Again, the name of the book is The Cost of Colors, A Coach's Story. We're going to have it up there so that everybody can check it out on Amazon.
Yeah, I hope everybody will read it. They can, because the reason I wrote it was so people get the true story, not the fake news.
Yep. God bless you, Coach. You have a
God bless you, buddy. Thanks for having me.